how can we involve remote team members or stakeholders effectively in a sprint review? So this one's hard. Okay. It's easier if everybody's remote. One thing that we learned in the pandemic was it is possible to do this stuff remotely. The tools, and they're definitely far better than they were 3-4 years ago. But they allow us to do it. But what was true before the pandemic is still true now. If you've got a group of people sat in a room and one person remote, it's really hard to keep them engaged, really hard to make this meeting effective for them. Right? So my first advice to many people is, if you're going to have remote people, push everybody remote. Okay? Equalize the playing field. And because it's so easy when a group of people are in a room and one person's remote to just forget about them, not talk to them, not bring them back into the conversation. And that's true as a facilitator who's meant to be, on the outside of the conversation as much as the meeting attendees. As a facilitator, I hope you have a prompt to bring them back in, but it feels forced in my experience. It's something that you have to consider, you have to think about, and you have to do something to involve them again. Otherwise, they just drift off into the background. And I find many people like that. So if you find yourself with one person remote, I would actually recommend push everybody remote, or thank them for their time and maybe video what you're doing and share it with them and solicit feedback separately. Okay? Because if you can't engage them throughout the meeting, what's the value they're adding or receiving? Maybe there is some, and I'm wrong. But actually, what I find very often is they just feel it a waste of time. So once we've got people remote, how do we keep them engaged? Well, give them an opportunity to talk. Facilitation is about keeping people on track, guiding their attention back to the agenda. So share it. Let people know where they are in the meeting so they can work out what they need to add, if anything. Is this about them talking, or is this about them listening? Okay? So do guide people's attentions. Use agendas. Make it visible. Point to it. And then equal voice. Ensure everybody has the opportunity to talk. If you have particularly big groups of people turning up to your sprint reviews, you may not want an open discussion, giving everybody just the opportunity to pile in, because some people are going to dominate that conversation. And I don't mean that in a nasty way or a bad way. There's just some people who talk more than others. There are some people who process verbally and some people who process internally. Right? So we need to be aware of that. We need to give people the ability to take in information, synthesize it as they best can, and respond. For some people, they're just going to talk. Okay? For them, it's easy to keep them engaged because they think by talking, and therefore people interact with them. But those who take information in, sit quietly, and then join in, well, if they can't join in because somebody else is talking, they will wait. Well, they may well wait, should I say. So we need to break things up, change things up, should we say. Okay. So when we've got people in a remote situation, we need to engage them in many different ways. It's actually exactly the same as if they were in the room together. You wouldn't have 30 people having a big town hall conversation all the time. You'd break them into pairs or threes, or let them do individual working, and then combine people together in different ways to share and collaborate so that they can come back with a distilled idea. Liberating Structures has the 1, 2, 4 all technique, where everybody goes off and does their own thinking, and then people pair up and they share their thinking, and then pairs join together into fours and they share their thinking, and then people can come together. It can be used in things like a sprint review. If you've got 30 or 40 different stakeholders who all want a say, well, you can have them, you can demonstrate the product. If it's a digital one, maybe you can give them access to it so they can go in and play with it and put their thinking down on their own. Give them time to just put stuff down and think things through, right? And then combine them into pairs and let them share their ideas, their insights, what they see as being a good idea and not, and talk about it. And then combine those pairs together into fours and talk again. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process. But it might be more valuable for the stakeholders to have different people from the team in different parts of these conversations. So it might be that every pair has a team member and a stakeholder, or every 4 has a team member in it. However works best for you and your team to get that information, to hear as much as possible about their feedback, about their thinking. So yeah, engage people, use different structures, bring people in. As I said, try not to end up in the situation where you've got a group of people sat around a table and 1 or 2 people separate, because I've never cracked that problem so that I'm satisfied with the answer. I do have tips and tricks about reminding myself to pull people back, and some of them are very simple. Like I set a timer that just repeats every couple of minutes, and I just pay attention to, have they joined in the last 2 minutes? Has that person joined in? But I find it forced. I find it artificial. You've got to pull them back into the conversation, because it's so easy when you're on the end of a camera and everybody else is in person to just sit back and let it wash over you. And let's be honest, check your email.